What is Native American food? There isn't just one type of Native American food. Remember that there are 566 federally recognized tribes today. With that, there are regional and ingredient differences. Native cooking is easy to define based on two rules. 1. The use of food only indigenous to your area. And 2. Only using simple cooking techniques such as smoking, drying, or putting in direct contact with fire. Today, many Native American chefs focus on a pre-colonization menu. Foods that were eaten before European colonists came to the Americas. This means no factory-produced white flours, no processed sugars, no farmed meats like beef, pork, and chicken, and no dairy. Corn, squash, and beans are often referred to as the Three Sisters because they thrive when grown together and appear together on many native menus. Sometimes they appear with game meat such as buffalo and rack of rabbit. Sean Sherman, owner of the Sioux Chef Catering Company in Minnesota and member of the Oglala Lakota or Oglala Sioux Nation, says with the Native Americans' knowledge of plant identification and usage, the cuisine is, quote, a lifetime of education to figure out, and he finds new plants and techniques every year. Loretta Barrett Oden, Emmy Award-winning host of PBS's Seasoned with Spirit, member of the Potawatomi tribe, and founder of the Corn Dance Cafe in Santa Fe, New Mexico, points how plant-based and healthy native-based dishes are, with Vegetarian Times and similar magazines being the first to promote her restaurant. Many foods at native restaurants seem fairly familiar, and not just because they're interpreted for a modern plate. Foods like popcorn, jerky, smoked salmon, blue corn, grits, chili dishes, and stews all have native influences. Think to yourself, what do all these types of food have in common? Do they all come from natural resources? Are they all prepared with simple cooking techniques? What about fry bread? Fry bread is one of the most controversial foods associated with Native Americans. It is essentially dough fried thickly in lard or another type of shortening. It may be the most well-known native form of food, but its origins hark back to one of the most painful periods of Native American and U.S. relations. Now think to yourself, why would some Native Americans be offended by fry bread? With the way it looks, with how it's made, by the time it comes from? Fry bread was introduced from the Indian Removal Act known as the Long Walk, which lasted from 1864 to 1866 and forced the Arizona Navajo people to walk 300 miles to relocate in New Mexico. Their food and their animals had to be left behind or destroyed, but to keep them from starving completely, the government offered ration boxes of cheap commodity foods like lard and flour. While some native chefs refused to serve it, many native chefs embrace fry bread. One reason for its popularity is that it doesn't require specialized culinary training. However, there are some fry bread specialties such as stuffed fry bread tacos, fry bread nuggets, and sugar dessert fry bread. Why aren't there more restaurants? While the restaurant business is known for being make or break, restaurants featuring native cuisine still have the benefit of being novel and popular. Barrett Oden's restaurant ran smoothly for 10 years before she moved it closer to her grandchildren, and the Pueblo Harvest Cafe has been open since the 1970s. People tend to eat what they are more familiar with at restaurants, So native chefs are methodically combining indigenous ingredients into familiar salads, roasts, and stews. The reasons why there are few native cuisine restaurants can be from a lack of capital, as well as an unfamiliarity with the food. For a style of cooking that could easily be vegetarian, vegan, and gluten-free, Barrett Oden states that, quote, "In this country, Native American food is the only ethnicity not represented in the culinary world." Now let's talk about Native American music. In Native American culture, musical concepts and values encompass ideas about the origins and sources of music, and the ownership, creativity, transmission, and aesthetics. Native American music can be traced back to the time of creation, when certain songs were given to the first people by the Creator and by spirits in the mythic past. Sacred narratives describe the origins of specific dances, songs, instruments, ceremonies, etc., and shamans and other individuals may have dreams or visions in which spirits teach them new songs, rituals, and dances. Each community's musical concepts and values develop over time with complex social and cultural processes. These concepts reflect broader ways of thinking, and as such, offer important insight into general cultural patterns. Native Americans differ in how they discuss musical concepts, but even for people who do not verbalize musical ideas, there are underlying conceptual structures, and they may be interpreted by seeing musical practice. Many Native American communities learn new songs from repertoires from their neighbors and have a long history of adopting musical practices from outsiders. Yet with every case, the music is a gift that comes from beyond the community or the individual. Some Native people considered songs property and have developed systems of musical ownership, inheritance, and performance rights. Other Native communities feel that specific pieces of music belong to an ensemble or to the entire community, and they should not be performed by outsiders without specific permission. Musical transmission involves oral teaching and learning processes that preserve songs and repertories from one generation to the next. Some genres, such as social dance songs, are taught informally through imitation and participation. Songs for curing rituals are usually learned through an apprenticeship, where the student receives direct instruction from an experienced practitioner over several years. Some communities have developed their own indigenous system of music notation, but these are used by seasoned singers as memory aids instead of teaching tools. In modern times, it is normal for Native Americans to supplement oral tradition with audio and video recordings for teaching and preserving traditional repertories. Native Americans tend to evaluate performances based on the feelings of connectedness they create, rather than based on specific musical qualities. Native American performances integrate music, dance, spirituality, and social interaction in multi-layered events. These may take place simultaneously, and different musicians or ensembles may perform unrelated genres close together. These events require extensive planning that may extend over months or even years. Preparation includes musical composition, rehearsal, instrument making or repair, the assembling of dance regalia, and preparing the dance ground. The host prepares and serves food to participants and guests, and may give gifts to specific individuals. Participants themselves prepare spiritually in a process that involves prayer, fasting, and other methods of purification. The ceremonies may last several days, but the different musical components are interconnected in many ways. Everyone in attendance participates in some way, either through active involvement in music and dance or by bearing witness. Lead singers and dancers may be political or spiritual leaders who have an important role in decision making for the community. Performances may be specific to a single community or to many, and even different tribes and nations. Native American spirits are also said to take part in these events. Musicians performing do not expect applause or praise from the audience, as their role, they feel, is to serve the community. But there are aspects of humor included to keep people lighthearted. Native American instruments include the skin drum, the frame drum, which is a portable skin drum, the log drum, the water drum, which is a vessel filled with water, container rattles, deer hoof rattles, flutes made out of sticks, bones, hollow reeds, clay, and bamboo, bone whistles, fiddles, and musical bows. Vocal style may be tense, requiring greater muscular effort, or relaxed to varying degrees. The higher notes often sound more tense than notes in the middle of a singer's vocal range, and the sounds may be nasal or may not. Men in particular may use a falsetto voice for a higher timbre using the full voice. The vibrato is rapid and slight variation in pitch, and is often performed as part of the musical aesthetic or the performance. Traditional music plays a vital role in perpetuating Native American languages, some of which are not spoken in daily life any longer. Native American songs texts constitute a genre of poetry in terms of style, structure, and expression. Native people often perform songs as part of traditional storytelling. These songs may illuminate a character's thoughts and feelings. Song texts usually make reference to local fauna and flora, specific features of the landscape, natural resources like water, or aspects of the community. Now let's talk about Native American cultural norms. Native American family life was different from and changed in response to contact with the European settlers, who misinterpreted, misconstrued, and misunderstood Native customs. It was normal for a European male to be required by the prospective bride's family to showcase his ability to support her, yet when a Native American man presented the bride's family with skins and other goods to prove the same thing, Europeans decided that Native American women could be bought. Divorce appeared to have been relatively simple to Native Americans, and sexual freedom was not inconsistent with marriage. Marital problems only arose when the spouse did not approve. Most Native American cultures were matrilineal, and descent was on the mother's side. Among the Algonquin people, the responsibilities of a married man were to his wife, children, and his mother's family. Sometimes, Native American women inherited positions as tribal leaders. The European male settlers did not understand nor approve the treatment of Native children, on whom affection was lavished, in particular by a maternal uncle who undertook their education. Native children, unlike European children, were not spanked or beaten as punishment. The European male settlers also did not understand nor approve the division of labor among native men and women. Native women grew crops, erected houses, and did everything in terms of the home. Native men hunted, fished, and fought in wars. Europeans only viewed hunting as recreational in Europe, and as such viewed the native men who hunted as lazy idlers. The contribution of both sexes in native society was actually about equal until the European demand from hides and furs made the male hunters more important than the female farmers. Now ask yourself, why would the European settlers not understand nor approve of Native American cultural norms? Were power and prestige a part of the settlers' motivations? Were the thoughts of their quote-unquote Anglo-Saxon superiority present? Now let's talk about family structure patterns. As household units, both nuclear and extended family models may be found in Native American communities. These two models do not, however, represent constricted parameters for them. Native American family systems as extended networks characteristically include several households. A Native American family is in actuality an active kinship system which includes parents, children, aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents. Think of this as an extended group of family in a family. The feature of lateral extension into multiple households is followed by an additional bonding feature of incorporation through which significant non-kin become family members. This bond is initiated through formal and informal processes. For example, an individual may become a namesake for a child through a formal ritual. This individual then assumes familial obligations and responsibilities for the child's rearing and role modeling. Small reservation communities. Family structure patterns vary within tribal and geographic conditions. Structural complexity is most easily understood in remote areas of tribal homogeneity. Family structure patterns in a small reservation community assume a village-type configuration, with many households in close geographic proximity. This pattern shows how family truly represents the foundations of a community. Now let's talk about interstate structure. A large number of family systems extend over broad geographic regions and assume interstate dimensions. In a larger number of cases, this structural pattern has been influenced by historical tribal mobility. In other cases, this structural pattern has been influenced through the force of U.S. policy. No matter the etiology, this family structural pattern, several households in each of several states, is representative of an interstate family structure. This type of family structure may bring difficulties for some observers because interstate linkages are not always easily understood, and many human service professionals mistakenly presume that signals of effective bonding are absent. The relational bonds vary among families and individuals, of course, but normative family behavior brings effective bonding and means of re-entry in response to a long-term absence. What this means is, it is difficult to understand the complexity of a Native American family relation across states, but human nature in regards to family must be remembered. Just because a family member lives further away doesn't mean you love them any less. Now let's talk about communities and urban areas. Urban living circumstances have brought about different environmental impacts on Native American family systems. These environmental forces, however, have not astoundingly influenced family structural patterns or the behavior associated with them. Family features of multiple households as a transactional field of socialization, the incorporation of non-kin into the family system, and preferential ethnic relational patterns remain the same. For example, family members in a medium-sized urban community located within 500 miles of the family's reservation had moved voluntarily to the urban area and independently established households within close proximity to other family members. This family structure represents a true example of community within a community. Now let's talk about communities in metropolitan areas. Family structure is also replicated in large metropolitan areas that are many times located long distances from family reservations. Family households are often spread among several communities or cities of a metropolitan area. Native families in large metropolitan areas also appear to be highly influenced through informal incorporation of non-kin. Native American family development is rarely caught through explication of purposefully ordered relational behavior. This may be seen in three major lifespan phases. 1. Being cared for. 2. Caring for. And 3. Assuming care for. Lifespan phases are not necessarily dictated in regards to age, but in regards to family or cultural role. For example, traditional medicine men with spirit power may be very young, but they assume care for others in the family, clan, or tribe. Moreover, care denotes cultural and spiritual maintenance as well as physical and emotional needs and satisfaction. Therefore, as an operative term, care identifies comprehensive family strengthening roles throughout a lifespan. Comparatively, ego identity and nuclear family models is satiated through independence gained by what one does and achieves in life. Eventual retirement with self-responsibility apart from the mainstream of family is a life goal in a nuclear family system. Ego identity and extended family models, on the other hand, is satiated through interdependence roles acted out in family context. Proactive roles as an elder with family responsibilities to send out a worldview derivative from a wisdom of years of service serves as a life goal for the extended family. Lifespan development as a process is readily caught through explication of how relationships are formally organized and acted out in selected tribal family systems. This serves to identify the primacy of family roles through behavioral activity in each phase. Now let's talk about the first phase, being cared for. This first phase is best illustrated through naming ceremonies. The timing of this ritual varies. Sometimes it is performed shortly after birth, and other tribes perform this ritual when the child is several years old. In both cases, the ritual illustrates a formal kinship obligation. A name forms a cultural map and sets a path for which one's life shall proceed. Naming ceremonies organize an obligatory supportive network for children, and family members such as uncles, aunts, or grandparents are most often selected as namesakes, with the occasional non-kin, In this case, naming ceremonies revitalize an extended family system through organizing a proactive social and spiritual fabric around those being cared for. Namesakes assume major child-rearing responsibilities in Native American culture. Personal contact between namesakes and children is supposed to occur on a regular basis, making namesakes role models. This responsibility requires high personal contact standards. Immoral or bizarre behavior may developmentally harm the child. Child-rearing roles include an obligation to care for the child if the parent is ill or in hard times. This represents an unconditional, non-judgmental social insurance that does not undermine the sanctity of parenthood in the Native community. The second says, preparing to care for is best exemplified through adolescence. It is the age between dependence and independence, with all the confusion, life lessons, and the sense of self associated with adolescence. Strengthening mutual interdependence through relational bonding stays an overt lifelong task. Afterwards, there is the third phase, assuming care for, which represents respect and wisdom gained. The elders of the community. The elders are important to the community for providing a continuity of worldview, leading wisdom into daily life, and bringing order to chaos. Elders are reminders of heritage, survival, and strength, and their role often goes beyond the natural family to include the broader community. Think to yourself, is this so different than the family structures we see today and we use today? Both have periods of childhood, adolescence, and adulthood with similar responsibilities, and we both care for our family members. While we are all culturally unique, is there not a human similarity between the caring of Native American families and the caring of other cultures and ethnicities?